The detention block of Outpost Cal 7 reeked of ammonia and fear. Warden Threx had ruled these corridors for 6 cycles, and in that time he'd broken prisoners from 17 different species. The Vacrine withered under his gaze. The sorting collapsed at the first strike. Even the silicon-based Krell eventually cracked, their crystalline bodies fracturing under sustained abuse. But humans were different. Threx's mandibles clicked with irritation as he stalked toward Cell 47. The human female inside had been defiant since her arrival 3 solar rotations ago. She'd arrived with a small predator cub, a juvenile male who couldn't have been more than 10 standard years. Protocol dictated separating families, breaking bonds, crushing hope. It was efficient. It was necessary. The female's name was Dr. Sarah Chen, according to the manifest, a xenobiologist captured during a border skirmish. Useful for interrogation, the cub was listed simply as Rune, some human nickname that made no sense in galactic standard. Threx keyed open the cell door. Inside, Dr. Chen sat on the metal bench, her body bearing the purple-green bruises of previous sessions. She looked up at him with those unsettling, forward-facing predator eyes. No fear, just calculation. You will provide the coordinates to your ship's rally point, Threx stated, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into monotone English. I've already told you, Sarah said quietly. I don't know them. I'm a scientist, not military. Threx's forearms flexed. His species, the Quarik, had evolved as ambush predators on a world of perpetual twilight. They understood fear. They wielded it like a weapon. But this human female's heart rate barely elevated. Her pupils didn't dilate. Where was the prey response? Perhaps you need motivation, Threx hissed. He reached for his shock baton, the weapon humming to life with a blue glow. Your cub watches through the observation glass. He will see what defiance costs. For the first time, something flickered in Sarah's eyes. Not fear, fury. Don't you dare. The baton came down across her shoulders. Sarah gasped, her body convulsing as neural disruptors fired through her nervous system. She collapsed to her knees, teeth clenched against the scream that wanted to tear free. Threx had learned that humans valued stoicism. Breaking that facade was half the battle. He raised the baton again. It never completed its arc. A small hand, impossibly fast, shot through the cell bars from the corridor and seized the baton mid-swing. Threx's 4 eyes widened in shock. The observation window. The cub had been in the observation room, supposedly secured. How had he? Rune stood in the corridor, his small fingers wrapped around the electrified baton with no visible discomfort. He was small for a human juvenile, barely reaching Threx's thorax. Shaggy dark hair hung over eyes that should have been innocent, playful, young. They were none of those things. Hit her again. Rune whispered, his voice terrifyingly calm. See what happens. Threx jerked the baton back, but the cub's grip was iron. Impossible. Human juveniles were weak, underdeveloped. Their species required nearly 2 decades to reach physical maturity. This made no sense. Release my weapon, human spawn, Threx commanded, his mandibles spreading in what his species considered an intimidation display. Rune didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, the gesture a predator makes when studying wounded prey, and smiled. It wasn't a child's smile. It was all teeth and promise. Do you know what humans call me? Rune asked conversationally, still holding the baton. Rune. It's short for ruin because that's what I leave behind. Threx activated the baton's maximum charge. 50,000 volts coursed through the weapon, enough to incapacitate a full-grown Krell. Rune's smile never wavered. His hand never trembled. Interesting, the cub murmured. Tickles a bit. Then Rune yanked. Hard. Threx, despite his 4 arms and considerable mass, stumbled forward into the cell bars. Before he could recover, Rune twisted the baton in a movement no child should know, a disarming technique from human military training, and the weapon clattered to the floor. Mom, Rune said, his eyes never leaving Threx, are you okay? Sarah had pulled herself back to the bench, breathing hard but conscious. Rune, no. Remember what I said about control? I'm very controlled, Mom. Rune's voice remained that eerie monotone. He picked up the baton and examined it with professional curiosity. This is interesting technology. Neural disruptors keyed to synaptic pathways. Problem is, it's calibrated for species with distributed nervous systems. Humans are centralized. We're harder to shut down. Threx backed away, reaching for his comm unit. The cub noticed. I wouldn't, Rune said softly. See? Here's what you don't understand about humans, Warden Threx. We're not the strongest species. Not the fastest. Not the smartest, even. He stepped closer to the cell bars, and Threx saw something that made his 3 hearts skip in synchronized terror. The child's eyes had gone flat. Empty. The way a shark's eyes look before it attacks. But we're the most vindictive, Rune continued. We remember every slight, every wound, every injustice. And we wait, we plan, we adapt. He held up the baton. You've been hitting my mother for 3 days. That's 72 hours, 4,320 minutes. I've counted every single one. How did you escape the observation room? Threx demanded, his voice losing its authoritative edge. I didn't escape. I was never trapped. Rune pointed to the ventilation shaft above. Your security assumed a human child couldn't navigate a 20-centimeter shaft. Wrong assumption. You assumed I couldn't bypass magnetic locks. Wrong again. You assumed I was helpless. His smile widened. That was your biggest mistake. Threx's hand moved toward his comm unit again. This time Rune moved. The cub was through the cell bars, between them somehow, impossibly small and fluid, and had the baton pressed against Threx's primary neural cluster before the Warden could blink. I'm 10 years old, Rune whispered into Threx's audio receptor. Human children are supposed to be innocent, protected, weak. The baton hummed. But my mom's a xenobiologist. She studies predators. And my dad? Rune's voice dropped to something that barely qualified as human. He was special forces before the war. He taught me things. Survival things. Necessary things. The cub threatens me? Threx tried to sound amused, but his pheromones betrayed his fear. No threat, just information. Rune stepped back, tossing the baton away. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to open my mother's cell. You're going to escort us to the shuttle bay. You're going to let us leave. Impossible, Threx hissed. I will call guards. You'll be neutralized? Rune finished. Maybe, probably actually. You have 40 guards on this outpost. I'm one child with no weapons, he paused. But Warden Threx, ask yourself this. In the time it takes your guards to arrive, how much damage can one desperate human child do to your primary nervous system? Threx looked into those flat predator eyes and understood something the Galactic Council had been trying to explain for years. Humans weren't dangerous because of their technology or their military. They were dangerous because they refused to quit. They were dangerous because pain made them angry instead of compliant. They were dangerous because their children, their small, supposedly helpless children, could become weapons when their families were threatened. Cell 47 open, Threx said into his comm, his voice hollow. Sarah stumbled out, leaning on Rune for support. Mother and son moved toward the corridor, and Threx realized he was allowing it. He was letting them go. Why? He asked, genuinely curious. Rune looked back, and for just a moment he was a child again, scared, small, desperate. Because she's my mom, he said simply. And humans protect family, always. They disappeared into the corridor. Alarms would sound. Guards would mobilize. But somehow Threx knew they'd escape. Because humans didn't just protect family. They burned down worlds for them.